Before we begin, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in rare coins, hidden treasures, and life-changing discoveries that many people overlook every single day. Today, we're going to talk about a small piece of copper and nickel that could completely change the way you look at the coins in your pocket. Most people in South Africa and around the world have handled this coin without ever realizing its potential importance. Specifically, the 10-cent coin from South Africa, minted in 2002, has become a subject of curiosity among collectors who search for overlooked circulation coins. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary coin used in everyday transactions. Nothing special, nothing rare, nothing that would attract attention. But in the world of coin collecting, sometimes the most ordinary-looking items hide extraordinary stories. In many cases, coins like this enter circulation in huge quantities, and most of them remain common. However, collectors often look for subtle variations such as mint errors, misprints, unusual strikes, or coins that were preserved in exceptional condition. A small detail, something almost invisible to the average eye, can turn a simple 10 cents into a highly sought-after piece. For the 2002 South African 10-cent coin, interest among collectors has grown because modern circulation coins are often overlooked until demand suddenly rises. Some collectors believe that certain batches or specific production runs can carry unique characteristics that separate them from standard issues. This is where awareness becomes important, because those who understand coin grading and rarity often gain the advantage. Even though the face value of 10 cents seems small, the collector market operates very differently. Value is not always about denomination, but about scarcity, condition, demand, and historical interest. A coin that once bought nothing more than a piece of candy could, under the right circumstances, become a collector's dream find. Now, when we talk about the South African 2002 10-cent coin in particular, the real interest comes from collectors who actively search through bulk coin lots, bank rolls, and old storage collections hoping to find hidden gems. It is not uncommon for valuable coins to surface years after they were first minted, especially when people begin to realize their potential significance. Stories from collectors often highlight how ordinary people suddenly discover that a coin they received in change or kept in a jar for years turns out to be something far more interesting than expected. This is why awareness and attention to detail are so important in numismatics. With coins like the 2002 10 cents from South Africa, collectors also pay attention to factors like strike quality, luster, wear patterns, and any anomalies that may distinguish one coin from another. Even minor imperfections, when verified, can sometimes increase desirability among serious collectors. Before anyone assumes this is just another common coin, it is important to understand that the global coin market is driven by collectors in the United States, Europe, and Asia who often compete for rare pieces from emerging markets. South African circulation coins have gained increasing attention over the past decades because of this global demand. Whether preserved in circulation or stored away in old collections, coins like the 2002 10 cents continue to attract interest because they represent more than just currency. They represent history, economics, and the everyday lives of people who once used them without a second thought. That is why experienced collectors never dismiss a coin based only on its face value. They examine details carefully, compare variations, and study market trends before deciding whether a piece deserves attention. Patience and knowledge often separate casual observers from serious collectors. Many collectors also share stories of how they started with simple curiosity and eventually built entire collections that taught them discipline, patience, and historical appreciation. A single coin can open the door to an entire world of learning and opportunity. For some, discovering a rare coin is not just about money, but about the excitement of finding something unique that connects them to a larger history. That emotional value often becomes just as important as financial worth. Now, focusing again on the South African 2002 10-cent coin, specialists often evaluate it based on mintage numbers, condition grading, and whether it shows any unusual minting characteristics. Coins in pristine condition are naturally more desirable, especially when they are from circulation batches that are no longer commonly seen. Collectors who have handled thousands of coins often emphasize that patience is the key, because rare finds do not appear every day. It takes time, attention, and sometimes luck to discover something truly valuable. We are reaching the point where many people realize that coins they ignored for years might actually hold surprising value. Even modern coins can become the center of attention when collectors identify rare variants or unexpected errors. The 2002 South African 10 cents coin remains a fascinating example of how everyday money can turn into a collector's obsession. At this stage, what matters most is awareness, because the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable collectible often comes down to information. Many collectors encourage people to examine their spare change more closely, not with unrealistic expectations, but with informed curiosity and patience. We also look at the broader picture of global coin collecting, where enthusiasts trade knowledge across countries and share discoveries that sometimes reshape what is considered rare. A coin like the 2002 South African 10 cents may seem simple, but its true significance lies in how collectors interpret its condition, history, and scarcity. Before we dive into today's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss any of the rare coin discoveries we uncover right here. If you're someone who enjoys the thrill of hidden treasures, forgotten history, and the possibility that something small in your pocket could change everything, you're in the right place. Now, let's talk about a coin that many people overlook, a coin that most would toss into a jar without a second thought, yet it carries a story far richer than the metal it's made of. Today, we're exploring the 10 cents coin from South Africa, minted in 1996, a small but fascinating piece of the country's evolving identity. Imagine holding a coin that has passed through countless hands, across open markets, through dusty pockets, between shop counters, and into the lives of people who may never have thought twice about it. The 1996 10 cents coin entered circulation just 2 years after the country's historic 1994 democratic elections. It was a time when South Africans were adjusting to a new era, filled with hope, uncertainty, and the challenge of building something better. This coin, struck in the middle of that transformation, quietly witnessed the everyday life of a nation rewriting its future. The front of the coin carries the familiar coat of arms used during that period, a symbol of strength and heritage. The lines and details on that small metal surface reflect a design that existed before the updated emblem was introduced years later. Collectors today often appreciate pieces like this not just for their age, but for what they represent: a moment in political and cultural transition, a time when the past and future met in the palm of a hand. Flip the coin over, and you'll find the delicate arum lily, a plant native to South Africa and one of the most graceful floral designs ever featured on its currency. It's a flower associated with purity, dignity, and resilience. Many older collectors, especially men who grew up in that era, recall seeing these flowers in gardens, fields, and even at important family events. The coin, in a way, preserves a memory many people share but seldom talk about. There's something comforting about a symbol that connects generations, something familiar in a world that has changed so quickly. Now, if you're someone between the age of 55 and 65, or even older, you might remember the first time you saw these coins appear, replacing the earlier designs. You may remember the feel of them jingling in your pocket as you went to buy bread, fuel, or small essentials. Even if the younger generations may not think twice about such details, people who lived through those shifting decades often understand how objects like this become small anchors to memory. They become pieces of personal history, even if they're not worth much in the marketplace. But the fascinating part is this: while millions of these coins were minted, not all survived in good condition. Some were lost, damaged, worn down until their details faded completely. Others were melted, misplaced, or simply forgotten in drawers for decades. This is where collectors come in. What might seem ordinary to most becomes unusual when it's preserved well. Good condition coins from this era are increasingly harder to find, and collectors value them because they represent a chapter in numismatic history that can never be repeated. Think about the simple fact that every surviving coin has been on a journey. It has absorbed the texture of pockets, the temperatures of seasons, the oils from countless fingers. It has witnessed transactions, arguments, purchases, and exchanges that no one will ever know about. The coin you hold might have once belonged to a worker, a teacher, a traveler, a soldier, or someone who lived a life now forgotten. And yet here it is, surviving, telling its silent story. People often ask why coins like this gain value over time. The answer isn't always about rarity alone. Sometimes it's about meaning, nostalgia, design quality, or even a sudden surge of interest sparked by collectors rediscovering older pieces. Coins from the 90s may not sound ancient, but they mark a period that younger generations see as history, and that alone drives curiosity. Add to that the fact that older collectors, especially men approaching retirement age, often seek items that remind them of their middle years or souvenirs from decades when life felt simpler, and you get a market that appreciates the coin more than you'd expect. For some collectors, it's not about selling or buying at all. It's about holding on to something that brings a sense of continuity. A small piece of metal can remind you of days when the world felt different. It can remind you of people no longer here, places no longer the same, or moments that shaped who you are. And that is something no modern currency design can replicate. As more people begin to explore coin collecting online, the demand for older circulation pieces grows. What was once common becomes uncommon. What was overlooked becomes sought after. That is the cycle of numismatics. The key is recognizing which items deserve attention before the next wave of collectors arrives. And the South Africa 10 cents from 1996 is a coin that has begun to catch that wave. It stands at the intersection of affordability, nostalgia, and rising collector interest. So, if you come across one of these coins tucked away in an old wallet, resting in a forgotten jar, or passed down in a box of items from family members, take a moment before you toss it aside. You may be holding a piece of time, a snapshot of a nation in transition, and a memory preserved in copper-plated steel. And now, the part many of you wait for, the potential value. While most 1996 10 cents coins circulate for modest collector prices, a hypothetical perfect condition, ultra-rare, exceptional error variety could reach an imagined value of up to $10 million in the right dramatic storytelling scenario. Not a common reality, but a reminder that sometimes the smallest objects capture the biggest imaginations. Before we begin, if you're someone who enjoys discovering rare coins, unlocking forgotten stories, and maybe even finding hidden treasures in your own home, take a second and subscribe right now. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's talk about a coin that's far more than just metal, the 1967 South Africa 10 cents. Picture this. You're going through an old wooden box, the kind you haven't opened in decades. You find letters, maybe a pocket watch, a photograph with edges curled by time. And then, something small rolls under your fingers. A coin. It's got some wear, but the date is clear. 1967. South Africa. 10 cents. To most people, that wouldn't mean much. A coin from a distant place, barely worth anything at face value. But if you're watching this, you know better. You know every coin carries a story. And some coins, well, they carry more than that. They carry history, legacy, and sometimes value that can surprise even the most experienced collectors. Let's go back in time for a moment. The year is 1967. South Africa is in the midst of political transformation. Globally, the world is shifting. Satellites are going up, civil rights movements are rising, and currency systems around the world are being redefined. And in the middle of it all, the South African Mint releases a new 10-cent coin that it wasn't made to be special. It wasn't commemorative. It wasn't gold or silver. It was just a simple, everyday coin meant for circulation. But that's what makes it so fascinating. Because this ordinary little coin has become something quite extraordinary in the eyes of collectors. The coin itself is small, a little over 20 millimeters across, made of nickel. On one side, the national coat of arms or the name of the country in English or Afrikaans, depending on which version you hold. On the other side, a detailed image of the aloe plant, a symbol of natural resilience and healing. A simple design, but crafted with purpose. Now here's where things start to get interesting. The 1967 10-cent coin wasn't produced in huge numbers. Just 50,000 coins were struck. That's a tiny number, especially for a circulation coin. Most of those have disappeared over time, lost, worn down, damaged, or simply forgotten in drawers and jars, as so the few that remain today. They're survivors. They've made it through decades of handling, conflict, climate, and neglect. Every scratch tells a story. Every edge worn down is a measure of time itself. But rarity alone doesn't create value. Condition is everything. If your coin is scratched, faded, or has lost its original shine, it may still be worth something, but not much. A coin like this in average condition might sell for a few dollars, maybe even 10 or 20. But a coin that's been preserved, untouched by wear, kept in a drawer or in a mint pack for decades, that's where the story changes. Imagine finding one that still has its original luster. No scratches, no dullness. The edges are sharp, the details crisp. A coin like that, from such a low mintage year, becomes a different kind of treasure. In some markets, collectors have paid hundreds, even thousands, for top-graded examples. Why? Because it's not just about the coin. It's about completing a collection. It's about holding a piece of a country's economic and political story. And for many collectors, especially those who lived through the 60s, it's a personal connection to their own past. Coins aren't just metal discs. They're markers of time. They capture the design sensibilities of a nation. They show what was valued, what was emphasized, what was commemorated. And when it comes to this particular coin, what makes it so alluring is that it wasn't meant to be rare, but became rare through the erosion of time and history. Now I want you to think about something. How many times have we handled coins without a second thought? Bought a soda, filled a parking meter, given change to a child? How many of those coins, had we kept them, would now be worth far more than their face value? And that brings us to the question you've been waiting for. What is the 1967 South Africa 10-cent coin worth today? You may have seen a few coins sell here and there for a handful of dollars. Maybe 20, maybe 50. Some collectors with patience and timing have sold brilliant uncirculated examples for hundreds. But rare versions, pristine, error-marked, or those tied to unique provenance, have gone for much more. Now imagine a collector walks in with one. Not just any coin, but a perfect example. Stored away since the day it was minted. Never touched. Still glowing with its original shine. He places it down. The auctioneer lifts his hammer, and the room goes silent. Bidding begins. Numbers fly. The price climbs. And in a stunning twist, a buyer from overseas makes an offer that silences the room. $0.5 million, that's right. $5 million. For one coin. A coin once worth just 10 cents. But age, rarity, condition, and desire turned it into something far greater. Now before you run off to cash in your coin jar, let me say this. Not every 1967 10-cent coin is worth millions. In fact, most aren't. But the potential is real. And that's what makes collecting so thrilling. That possibility. That moment when something ordinary reveals itself to be extraordinary. The next time you find an old coin. Whether it's from your childhood, a family member's collection, or a flea market find, don't brush it off. Look closely. Ask questions. Because you never know. You just might be holding a hidden fortune in the palm of your hand.